And we are on. You are listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM, Santa Fe News Talk Leader. We are recording this live from Artisan, the art supply store on Cerrillos Road, and we have a fantastic show today. We have Richard Welker. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Bob Moss. And Bob has been a friend of mine for a long time, and we'll get into all his history, but Bob's going to hit us with a song. So what do you got going on there, Bob?
Well, Ron, I'm a big fan of good songs, and here's a vintage tune that by Cat Stevens that still holds pretty true. So I'd like to play that first.
Nice.
Fine, building jumbo planes. We're taking a ride on a cosmic train. Switch off summer to the slot machine. You can get anything that you want, but you can get anything. I know we've come a long way, we're changing day to day. So tell me, where do the children play? Will you roll on roads over fresh green grass? And your lorry loads the pumping petrol gas, and you make them long, and you make them tough, but they just go on and on and on till you can't get off. Oh, I know we come a long way, we're changing day to day. So tell me, where do the children play? Where do they play? Crack the sky, scrapers fill the air, but will you keep on building higher till there's no more room up there? Will you make us laugh? Will you make us cry? Will you tell us when to live and tell us when to die? I know we've come a long way, we're changing day to day. So tell me, where do the children play?
Nice, Bob. Woo! That's Bob Moss. Thank you. Beautiful tune. And we're going to be talking with Bob a little later on in the show and exploring. He just got back to Santa Fe after a little hiatus in the San Francisco area, and we're sure glad in the music scene to have Bob back because he's multi-talented guitar player, keyboard player, but also a major good producer. So we're going to be exploring his music career a little later, but I want to welcome Richard because I have seen Richard in the store for many times and we've talked. Richard has a beautiful card line that we've stocked at Artisan for a long time, and these cards are incredibly detailed, conscious cards, and I had a chance to explore his website a little bit and learn more about Richard, and what a fantastic story he has, and we're going to dwell into that. But let's get your background a little bit, Richard. Are you native Santa Fean, or?
No, I was born in Glendale, California.
Okay.
And raised, I was orphaned when I was 12, raised by my maternal uncle and
Okay.
his wife, and so I lived in a little town called La Honda, which is where Ken Kesey was stationed at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And taking art back then, or what were your interests
No,
back
I
then?
was nothing like that. Actually, I became a contractor or carpenter after majoring in English in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Staying in the California area, or?
Moved to Santa Fe in 1990 after a 3-year stint in Hawaii.
Nice.
Yeah.
What brought you out here?
Hawaii wasn't home, and we were looking for a home at the time. So we came here, and that was it.
Yeah.
We decided, yeah, we're going to move here.
It just felt right.
Yeah. Always wanted to live in the Southwest.
Well, same. My story is very similar too. As far as like when I came into Santa Fe, I knew this was the place that I was supposed to be living. So,
Yeah.
let's explore a little bit, because I was looking on your website, and there was some experience that you had that kind of was life-changing for you, that got you into art from construction, I guess. I didn't know you were in construction, but...
Well, after construction, I became a mental health counselor. I went back to school and got my master's degree in counseling.
Okay.
In 2009, practically right January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, right around that area, it was as if a lightning bolt hit, but it wasn't pleasant.
Okay.
And we now would know what to call that. It was called a spiritual emergency, essentially. And that's a rapid, chaotic, psychological transformational crisis. And it looks bad.
Yeah.
It can even look pathological. It's definitely dark in my case. But it has a trajectory, and the trajectory is towards healing and towards a more expanded way of looking at life as unified. Everything's one.
Was this a instantaneous moment that
No.
you had? So
No.
it was like it started coming over you.
Yes, and it happened fast, and instant panic, instant unhinging of, we generally look at ourselves as X,
Yeah.
kind of an ego box, right?
Uh-huh.
And every now and again something might happen. You can have these trigger events or these antecedents. You can lose somebody, or you lose your job, or you get unhinged some way
Yeah.
from what you're traditionally thinking, hey, this is the way I'm supposed to be going. And then all of a sudden you're going that way. It's like a tsunami or a earthquake, but
Yeah.
it's inside.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
So when it happened, I was reading on your website that you started exploring. You weren't an artist before this. Were you playing with art? Or?
I was playing with art.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd had some dolphin swims, and I was doing some mandalas prior to that, and crop circles. I was really interested in the geometry of them.
Okay. So let's get to the crop circles first, because that was mentioned on your website. That was a changing experience when you saw crop circles. How did that influence you?
There was something about the perfection of them, because I tried to draw them and I realized this is higher mathematics.
Yeah.
I mean, this is higher geometry in a way I had never even seen. One symbol alone took me 3 days to draw. And I still never figured out exactly how they did it, I guess.
Yeah.
But whoever it was more like a love message from another dimension almost. The perfection of them. Not all, some of them were man-made, and that you could tell.
Yeah.
But the perfection of the ones that were geometrically perfect did something to me. It was like this species here must be a part of something much bigger that we don't know about yet,
Yeah.
but that we're heading towards.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I have never explored crop circles to the degree that you have. So you try to imitate and draw these crop circles?
Yeah, and one of them is my logo now.
Okay. We're going to be exploring a little bit more. We're talking with Richard Welker, and just for those of you, we have Facebook Live at Artisan that you can go and see his artwork that's behind me, which is just absolutely incredible. Or you could come buy a greeting card at Artisan, and he has his artwork on that too. But we're going to get another song out of Bob Moss. You're listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM KTRC. We'll be right back. Hang on. And we are back. You're listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon. Talk 1260 AM KTRC and 103.7 FM, Santa Fe News Talk Leader. I am Ron Whitmore. We have guest Richard Welker, visual artist, and we were exploring his career, a little bit about growing up in California, then moving to Santa Fe after Hawaii, having kind of a spiritual emergency experience. And we're just starting to get into how crop circles and mandalas influenced his life. And we'll be talking about that, but we have Bob Moss here, and Bob has another song, I guess. Don't you, Bob?
Well, thanks, Ron. Yeah, well, as you know, I like to produce music, and I've written a few songs myself. I don't consider myself a prolific writer, but I do enjoy the process and working with other artists. This is a song I wrote a few years back. It was sort of my first attempt at the hip-hop genre. So it's called What's a Life All About?
What's a Life All About? Bob Moss.
This world is getting so complex. Sometimes we lose touch with our significance. You wake up, your life is an illusion. The answer's there somewhere in the confusion. What is a life all about? When you gotta think about why you're here. What's it all about? I gotta find a way out of here. I wanna know about all my life, where it's headed to. I wanna know why I'm here, so I can do what I need to do. Walk down the city street, hear the hustle bustle of the shuffling feet. Step out, look deep down inside. Feelings there you cannot hide. What is a life all about? When you gotta think about why you're here. What's it all about? Oh, I gotta find a way out of here. I wanna know about all my life, where it's headed to. I wanna know why I'm here, so I can do what I need to do. What is a life all about? When you gotta think about why you're here. What's it all about? Oh, I can't find a way out of here. I wanna know about all my life, where it's headed to. I wanna know why I'm here, so I can do what I need to do. What is a life all about? When you got nothing to lose. What's it all about? I don't need Bob Dylan to tell me I got the blues. I wanna know about all my life, where it's headed to. I wanna know why I'm here, so I can do what I need to do. What is a life all about? Oh, when you gotta think about why you're here. What's it all about? Oh, I can't find a way out of here. I wanna know about all my life, where it's headed to. I wanna know why I'm here. What is a life all about? What's it all about? I wanna know about. I wanna know why.
Nice, Bob. Woo! Bob Moss. We'll be talking with Bob a little later in the show. That's a song that he wrote and produced himself. And that's a perfect segue from where we were with Richard, because what's a life all about? So what we were talking about is that Richard had a spiritual emergency, and it's actually, if you go to his website, it's richardwelker.com.
Richard Welker, art.
Art.com. You can go to a link on there that explains exactly what spiritual emergencies are, but I'm familiar with them too. It's sort of a dark night of the soul type of thing, where everything starts falling apart, and whatever direction your life is, something happens that it's a a major change of the way you look at things. And Richard and I were talking earlier. I have a dear friend, Bill Worrell, that it was so interesting to me. When I was back on Canyon Road, I was a salesperson, and Bill Worrell was this bigger-than-life character, and I had read in one of the books that he had written that he had a dark night of the soul that kind of changed everything, the way he looked at his life, the way he looked at his spirituality, the way he looked at his career, and he actually put it on a slab of clay, and it sits in his studio now. Your experience, let's explore a little bit more about that. So you started being interested in crop circles, but then it also evolved into kind of mandala. Can you explain that a little bit? What?
Well, a mandala is a universal symbol, right?
Yeah.
It's round. You find it in architecture like Stonehenge, or even in astrology in your chart, or you find it in healing sand paintings, you know, from the Navajos or Tibetan Tonkas, like that, And so it comes out of you spontaneously, as it did for me, as part of this. What I guess you could call it a changing of the gods within. That's a momentous time in any venue. And so this art just started to flow out when I had never really seriously done it before.
Were you like, when it first started to flow out, did you have a pad and you just started like doodling and drawing, or was
kind of, and I picked up my kids' watercolors, brush and paint, and compass, because I was really precise about it, and I taught myself a lot about how to make polygons, 5-sided figures, 6-sided figures. The ancients knew how to do this stuff with just a straight edge and a compass.
Your work is so exact. I mean, the piece that we have behind here, I mean, without being able to show it on the radio, I mean, there's such an exact geometric pattern that you've developed here. So this is your art style that started coming out when you had this spiritual emergency.
This has evolved.
This has evolved.
Much more evolved from then. Now I'm using kind of talk about art fusion, okay? Sometime way back, I got interested in dots. I don't know why, but I started using a stick, actually, like this, just a bamboo skewer. Just putting it into gouache and making dots. At first I was using a brush, but then it evolved into a stick because it made better dots.
Yeah.
And so the Aboriginal style eventually merged with the geometric style, and I started to learn how to draw a little bit, to make images that would come. But for the most part, it's archetypal symbols that interest me, because they stand for things that are universal in the human consciousness.
And a lot of those are animals too. I noticed that you use reptiles, snakes and turtles and owls and coyotes. And is this a spiritual type of thing that you see in the animal, or what do they play?
Sometimes you might have an encounter with an animal. Yeah. And sometimes if you focus on what the animal is saying, quote unquote, they talk to you. And I'll come home and paint it, like the owl, for example, this image that you have there. Yeah. But the snake, for example, became very prominent because I felt like I was wrapped like with the snake, or invisible snake, and the old identity was getting squeezed out of me.
Well, we keep a large snake at Artisan, and always have for 17 years. I've always been into snakes, and I've always found that like the shedding of a skin is a transformational type of thing, and that's what the reptile represents to me. We're talking with Richard Welker. We have Bob Moss here. You're listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM. We'll be right back. Hang on. And we are back. You are listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM, Santa Fe News Talk Leader. I have a few announcements that I need to make because we're going on to the 4th of July right down the road. And Espanola, if you're out in the North Valley, they got a 4th of July celebration. It's going to be at the Espanola Valley Eagles place, and it's free. It's live music. They got Tony Diamond playing at 3 o'clock, Farmer John Band, and Sherrick is going to be playing there too. So if you're down in Espanola, go check out at the Eagles on 4th of July. And also this weekend, if you are looking for some new gallery action, there's 2 galleries that are right near Meow Wolf on Parkway. They're having a grand opening for the Entropy Gallery, who's a friend of mine, Patrick, that does this amazing photography of nature, and he's going to be opening his gallery this weekend. They have the grand opening on Friday, but they're going to be open this weekend, the Entropy Gallery, and that's on 1220 Parkway Drive. So if you want to check that out. And then James Koskinas, who was just on the show, is opening his studio this weekend at right next to it, 1228 Parkway, right across from Meow Wolf. They're going to have an open studio with Julie Schumer, and they're going to be showing off some of their large paintings. So if you're looking for something on the south side this weekend, go check that out. We have Bob Moss here, and I got to tell my Bob Moss story because Bob has produced my album Down the Road a long time ago. We worked together, and I ran across Bob. I'm not sure the exact bar I was in, but I was sitting there and listening to him, and he was entertaining everybody with his music. And we just I listened to him, and really nice listening stuff, cool stuff. And then he gave me his CD, and it's like, oh my God, this thing is so well produced. And then I found out he had a whole nother side. Besides being a musician, one of his main passions was producing other musicians. So he produced my album, I don't even remember how many years ago, 8 or 10 things, and we've done a few singles together. And then Bob moved to San Francisco and was pursuing an art. You were back to school, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I went back to school because one of my first experiences, I was in school in the 70s, when I was younger, and I got offered a dream gig to be a stage manager at the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, New Jersey. So I got into live production with national and international acts, right out of school. Although I didn't even finish school, and it was an incredible job. We had all kinds of incredible artists come through there. Big people like B.B. King and Ray Charles and Alvin Ailey and Martha Graham. It was just a whole education on live production.
So you were working the soundboard and doing the live production part of it?
Well, I was a stage manager, so we had a union stage, which means you have a union that does all that work. But you're responsible for all the little elements that go into production, making sure everybody's there, sort of like what you do, here. You have to make sure everybody's in place and got things going. And so that got me really going on the live production thing. And then I ran a recording studio, an old style, 2-inch tape, back in the tape days.
Back in California?
No, this was all in New Jersey, actually.
Okay.
I was in the Army previously, and I got out and stayed there right outside of New York. And the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, New Jersey is just about 30 minutes out of the city.
Uh-huh.
So,
your musical background, I know you're playing keyboards today, but I knew you playing guitar, so you play every instrument, or how does...
Well, I started on guitar and played a lot of bass, and I've always been a singer. But since I've been trying to think about playing out again, keyboards has always been a second instrument for me, and I always felt like guitar was limited.
Uh-huh.
It's only got 2 octaves. So the piano, you've got the whole orchestra.
How often were you playing out? I ran into you were playing out at the bar scene. You're looking to get back, now you just moved back to Santa Fe from San Francisco, and you're looking to get out and start gigging again, right?
Yeah, I like to play out, maybe like places like Hervey's, or I used to play in Milagros when they were open. I think that's the same place, actually.
Uh-huh.
And Second Street Brewery and places like that. Probably not a full schedule, just something to enjoy it, get out there and do it.
You want to do solo?
Yeah, although I wouldn't mind playing with other people. I really enjoy playing with other people, but it's hard to find, you know, players that have like minds. You know, it's kind of like art. You know, it's hard to share your art necessarily with someone else in a group situation. You're coming together, you know, and trying to focus on the strong songwriting, and that's where I come from. I really think songs are where it's at. You know, a strong song is everything.
Uh-huh.
It's like blowing in the wind. Anybody can sing it, and it still sounds great.
And you don't care whether you wrote it or someone else wrote it, because I know, like, in the production area, I mean, you produced with me, but who else have you worked with?
Well, I've worked with quite a few artists. There's a lot of people in New Jersey that I've played with. Paul Kleiser, I'm going to play a song by him later that off his album that I produced, and the Crink Sisters. They're really big in the Northeast area.
Yeah.
And I believe I produced your daughter too.
Yes, you did. You produced my daughter Christina's. I forgot about that.
I did too. It just crossed my mind. I just realized we did that. And so.
And the interesting thing, like when I was working with Bob, because we had gone into, with my band, we went into the studio at Step Ridge and we did all the live production stuff. But the really nice thing about working with Bob is I gave him the idea for the song, and he listened to the song and said, "Oh, I know this player in California, and there's this player that does bass here that would be perfect for it, and we get a little accordion right here." And everything was pretty much done on the internet. It's like you got this, well, basically, I mean, you have the meat of the song, and then you send it to other people in California that are coming off tour or whatever, and they add a guitar lick on there or a violin, and, you know, it's just a whole composition of putting things together. How did you learn that skill set?
Well, that goes back to the live production. You know, when you see people perform, especially great, you know, entertainers, big, you know, people that are really on top of their game, you start to realize what those elements are. And then when you work in the studio, you understand that it's about parts and getting things together and organizing. And of course, players, having really good players that are intuitive, they can really, you know what they can bring to the table.
Yeah.
So when you send them a tape over the internet and you send them some music, they can bring you something that really will blow you away. You know, instead of just, well, he's okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's you know, being in touch with a lot of great entertainers has been part of the situation, and knowing good players and you know, and anything they can't, you know, I can't do, I get someone else to do. So to speak.
Are you looking to get back into that, into the producing part?
Oh yeah, I love to produce. You know, anyone that needs help with their music, or you know, needs to you know, bring it to another level, I'm always into that.
Yeah. Well, the music scene in Santa Fe, it seems to be like the art scene. It's kind of constantly, people don't realize how many talented musicians exist in this small town of 85,000, and a lot of them don't even perform here. You know, there's major musicians. I know Kent Blasey, that writes a lot of Garth Brooks hits, has a house here. There's just tons of talent here in Santa Fe to draw on. And Bob, we're really glad to have you back in Santa Fe to be drawing on.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Thanks, man.
Okay. Richard, question to you. Your art, you went to this transformational experience, and then what did you start producing? This is an acrylic painting behind us?
Yeah, I started in watercolor and gouache.
Okay.
And eventually got accepted to the Santa Fe Society of Artists, and I started showing, I think, in 2012.
Doing outdoor shows?
Outdoor shows, yeah. And I did that for a few years, until just this last year.
How did you get into the card business, that you represent your cards?
That was sort of a no-brainer. After a while, you know, people wanted the images, and I wanted to have a way of getting them out there. So it was easy enough to produce a card, and originally the image with the name on the back, but at some point came to me that there should be commentary about the image on the back.
Well, you started putting, I was reading through some of your cards today, and it's sort of you have an explanation of the consciousness behind
Exactly.
of what you have on the front of the card.
Right. So it's actually the same painting 70, 80, 100 times.
Okay.
It's the same theme.
We're talking with Richard Welker. We're going to be right back with him. You're listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM. Hang on, we'll be right back. The Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM, Santa Fe News Talk Leader. We were talking with Bob Moss about his production, and he's going to get out playing in town. So if you are a nightclub or restaurant owner and you're looking for a solo musician, call Artisan and we'll get you in contact with Bob Moss because he's looking for some gigs. So, but we're on break. I was talking with Richard Welker because something fascinated me about when he was talking about crop circles, because I haven't really explored crop circles that much. And we were talking, and I'll throw this out again, you kind of have a feeling which ones were man-made and which ones were kind of a higher source. Is that what you were saying?
To me, it's kind of obvious. The ones that are hoaxes are most often extremely sloppy. But the ones that are, wherever they come from, we don't know. But they are incredibly precise. And the wheat or the rapeseed or whatever the medium is in the field that they produce these things, which by the way happen overnight, that fast, you know. One of them it took 2 days.
Yeah.
But the wheat is bent, and they become pilgrimage sites for many, many people who go there and meditate in those places. You know. I've never seen one, but when you look at the images, the photos of them, they are stunning beyond belief and very inspiring.
And that was part of the effect that kind of threw you into your spiritual, or this was an awareness that
this
preceded.
Yeah.
Okay.
It got me started, you could say, in the whole idea of mandalas, because they're circular art, most of them. And that mandala then becomes a symbol for the self, the inner self, the self with a capital S, which is like the individualized soul, which is hooked up to whatever intelligence is running this whole shebang, which is where I was coming from, which is who runs the universe? What's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, because the old story that we have about who we are and why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Everybody knows that.
Totally agree. So have you come to any conclusions with, I mean, is there any philosophies or spirituality? Can you share that a little bit?
Definitely come to some conclusions. It's an open conclusion, however. We're going from an old image of God,
right,
or an intelligence that is pretty fundamentalist. It's a god of vengeance, of retribution, it's a male god, it's a jealous god, all of that, to a kind of intelligence that has our entire evolution laid out in front of us. We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And so art becomes a way of trying to see, well, who are we? Why are we here? And what are we supposed to be doing? What is our relationship to this source?
Yeah.
What's it all about in your song?
Yeah. Well, the parallel that I draw is my friend Bill Worrell, who has the Worrell Gallery downtown, and he does these major sculptures. When he had his experience, he was actually a Baptist preacher that was going around Texas and had a whole congregation. And what emerged from him was like unlimited creativity in his art. I mean, from sculpture to drawing to writing books to jewelry to whatever. And the parallel I drew from that was, you know, you talk about a creator, we're all creative, you know, and it's like when you can unleash that within yourself, and not that turn off that critical mind or that critical voice and allow whatever that is inside of you to just manifest in creativity. And the people that have had those kind of major enlightening experiences, they become creators of art. And is that what you found with you?
Yeah, that hits on a point, actually, because if that's what starts to come out of you, who are we? What are we?
Yeah.
What are we connected up to? Maybe this intelligence isn't out there somewhere. Maybe it's in here. Maybe we're co-creators. And maybe the whole idea of a new story being born is it's all about love.
Yeah.
It's all about unity. It's all about this one giant being that's evolving that we are part of, and that creativity is a part of that show.
Richard's website is richardwelkerart.com, and if this interests you at all, I suggest that you go take a look at his website, because you'll see not only his artwork, but there's also a lot of the philosophy that you've been sharing here too. And I think the bottom line that I saw on your website was that it's just it's all about love.
Yeah.
And and I think
That's it.
I think every great spiritual leader has said that, but when you actually get that, that's, and it's not just
Then we
personal
start treating
love,
ourselves better.
and treating other people better too.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Richard, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show here. And I would, if you want to see examples of his art, you can come into Artisan. We stock his greeting cards here. But what if they want to buy a painting? Or your paintings? How do you market
Just
through
email
gallery?
me.
Okay, so go on your website and find
Just
you through that.
email me, right.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
And Bob, we have time for one more song. What do you got going on here?
Well, I really relate to what Richard's been saying, because a lot of the tunes I look for is a message in the song, not just well, you broke my heart. Now I've got to deal with it. This is a fellow that I was fortunate enough to produce an album for him, and like to play a song called "Home Again" that I produced for this for Paul Kleiser.
Okay.
He's a prolific songwriter, old friend of mine.
Local here?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Paul Kleiser.
You don't have a lock, you won't need a key. You'll be standing in line right next to me. We're all going home. We'll be together again. You don't have a heart, you won't need those tears. You won't toss and turn and feed on your fears. And we're all rolling home. We'll be together again. Your night is rain. No one ever told me I could feel this way again. Now that you have bought and sold me, there's a lot to be said for waiting your turn. Well, I hope you can get there before it all burns. And we're all going home. We'll be together again. You don't need a watch if you don't have the time. You can't smell the road
have been listening to Art Fusion, the art music radio show, Saturday at noon, Talk 1260 AM, KTRC, and 103.7 FM. Thank you, Richard Welker. Thank you, Bob Moss. We'll be back next week.